actual incentives, and do you currently have any developers who are excited about those opportunities for downtown is maybe my concern.
Well, we have infill that actually goes on all the time, some controversial, some kind of under the radar. And in part of the agreement when we started working on this plan was as an idea, we came up with an idea to the extent we could work on it, we work on it. So for example, Councilwoman Gabriel talked about the UPAC process, so there's several things going on with utilities with respect to infill right now. We moved code enforcement from police department over to the city already. There's a number of things we're working on our zoning, for example. So we're doing some of that. With respect to the infill committee, they were charged, and I didn't bring it with me, but they were charged with coming up with specific recommendations that were kind of actionable. That was one of the charges that they have. It's a very loose charge. But the other one was to come up with a new chapter of the comp plan that would help guide infill going forward. So we're working on drafting that chapter right now. We'll go to the planning commission, go to city council within the next couple of months and say, here it is. But it's kind of this interesting dynamic because if you look at this list, some things are being worked on right now, some things are really kind of general, some things may take a little bit longer. So it's not a turn the switch kind of a deal.
Chet, I think. So I'm not sure I have a well-formed question, but I've lived pretty much in many of the communities here, up in Woodland Park, West Side, Cheyenne Mountain, downtown, North End, Old North End, and I currently live in the evil Dublin and Woodman, or Dublin and Powers corridor. So, so something I really wrestle with though is it sounds like we're talking a lot at the process level, at the economics level, but I've lived in this community for almost all my life. I've really wrestled with what about the value space. It seems to me that neighborhoods and communities are centered around a common set of values, and so we can try to manage sprawl through policy and economics and so on and so forth. But how do we shift vision to get people that are living out in the what do we say, the Wicked West, to desire a more urban center, urban-centric city, and some of the things that seem, I'm very much passionate about as well. But I also know that a lot of my own neighbors, my own community, they just don't have an interest in coming downtown, and that's a common conversation. And my downtown friends say, well, how dare them not want to come downtown? But again, I guess my question kind of centers on how do we create a vision that is inspiring, where people actually want to come downtown, where they desire that, not just downtown, but maybe leverage or utilize kind of the benefits of each of the varied communities, because you could say just downtown, but we also have Manitou, Old Carter City, so on and so forth. How do we create that vision to bring people to some of the places of importance that we seem to be discussing?
Can I take a stab at that? I also have lived here for many years, close to 40 years, and as I alluded to in my comments, there was a period of time when we had 4 young children at home, and going downtown was not only to eat, or it wasn't just a night scene, it was a scene for people to go down at night and have a good time, have dinner, bars, and etc. But in the daytime, there were stores that you wanted to go to, have lunch. Some of those incentives would make people want to come back, even if they live out on the evil side of the boulevard.
They did it in Denver.
Yeah.
Denver 25, 30 years ago was a mess, right? I mean, its downtown was dying, if not dead. And it took concerted public investment, starting with the pedestrian mall, 16th Street Mall, and making sure that strategic decisions were made, like we're not moving the baseball stadium to Stapleton, we're not moving the football stadium to Stapleton, we're not moving the Elitch's to Stapleton, we're not moving anything out there. We're going to continue and we're going to make the public investment to make those things happen around our urban core. Look what's happened. And they have made public investment in that, and it's paid off. We've made, I don't know how many decisions in the time I've been here that have strategically changed the downtown. Pikes Peak Community College, out on, why? Free land from the Army, right? Baseball stadium, free land. World Arena, free land. You know, how many more, if we had those things in downtown Colorado Springs, would we be a different place today? Absolutely we would. And the downtown would be different. So I think it makes those kind of strategic public investments that occur through political process. And it's about political leadership and political courage to stand up and say, no, we're going to invest your dollars in that. It doesn't, and it hasn't happened here because of a variety of different reasons, but it hasn't. And until it does, we aren't going to see a change in those kinds of things.
I think my concern centers more on building that vision, though, for the taxpayer out there. For instance, I'm more than willing to pay $20,000, $30,000 for a BMW as opposed to $10,000 for a Honda. Both of them have 4 wheels, a steering wheel, and an engine. But I want, because I value the luxury that comes with a BMW. How do we create that inspiration? Because, and I recognize that having incentives absolutely helps, so I wouldn't argue against what is being proposed from a policy and economic standpoint, but I'm more saying, I think you can often find people more willing to spend or give their taxpayer dollars if they are inspired by a vision. And that's a little bit of more of my question. How do we create the vision of what you had experienced, you know, however long ago of a downtown? How do we create that for the people that live north and east and so on and so forth?
Go ahead.
I think there's 2 answers to that. One is there's already a demand for that on a kind of a macro level. Demographics show that there are a lot of people moving back to cities, and there's a return to that desire for an urban lifestyle, particularly for certain age groups. And the other is, I don't think we need one vision. If there are groups of people who live in other parts of this city and have those different values, as somebody said, of their neighborhood, that's okay. And even if you look at Denver, they have a lot of smaller neighborhood gathering places. The people in Lakewood, for instance, maybe they're going to Belmar and that's their little downtown. They're not going all the way to the big downtown. Highlands, for example, has some great little pockets where it's just a couple of blocks and they've got a coffee shop, a restaurant, some shopping, a place you can get your hair cut, a park. Those are gathering places too, and they're little micro downtowns. And so I think the idea that everybody in the city has to be in love with downtown and want to go there constantly is a mistake. And you know, we talk about a lot at CONO of having districts, and that there is a lot of diversity in our community already. There are good reasons that people live out on evil powers, as you call it. You know, some people would like a bigger yard for their kids.
Right.
That's okay. If you don't want to live in a loft downtown, that's okay.
Right.
But if you do want to live in a loft downtown, that should be okay too. So I think it's all right if we've got little pockets of this sort of thing happening all over the city in different ways.
I think a vision of walkability and Olympic training facility, athletics facility down here just south of Colorado a little bit would probably add a lot to downtown.
There's a lot of things that would add it, but it all takes money. And you know, I'll get on my soapbox here. There's nothing like an economy, right, to create all these different kind of visions and different kind of places to do that. Denver has a booming economy, and they've got all kinds of places you can move anywhere you want in Denver. And we don't have that much of an economy, and until we figure out how to create a buzz around Colorado Springs and make it an economic juggernaut like Denver has become, or Boulder, or Fort Collins, or damn near any place, Greeley, for God's sake. You know, we're not going to get anywhere until we can solve this economic growth problem.
Tony, I think we're going to give you the last question, and then we'll let these folks go on about their business. And thank you all.
So, really piggybacking on what you said, Kevin, how do we create that economic incentive? If you know, dirt outside of the city is dirt cheap, literally. How do we make it so here? I mean, is there a way that the city can subsidize the dirt part of it to get people to come in and do it? Or if not, what is the way to do that?
Well, I think it's that public investment piece. You know, it's like, you know, it's the downtown Olympic Park. You know, and where does that money come from? Well, you know, there's a variety of different things. There's urban renewal, there's other public investment. Until we change the culture here around that sort of issue, I think we're gonna have more of the same. And we're gonna argue around the edges, and we're gonna you know, worry about the issues around the edges, but we're not gonna ever get to the bottom line until we learn as a community that we need to invest together.
Anyone else want to take a whack at that?
I was going to answer that bigger question, but I would basically just say, Rachel and Kevin answered it together, all the comments I would make. There's a place for greenfield, a place for infill. There are some changing trends. There's not so much from my perspective that you're trying to somehow magically have greenfield go away because there's too much of it, it's too entrenched, it's too sort of set up. It's really the opposite. You can't let your core die. It's sort of that simple. So there's really a place for both. That's my 2 cents.
And I'll add that there, just a phrase I've been fond of when I heard it. It's very hard to have a city that's a donut. You got to have a center or something. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our panel for taking the time and putting the effort into preparing these remarks. That was great.